The last thing I saw before my head struck the wooden landing was my daughter-in-law's satisfied smile. One moment, Amber Martin's manicured hand was resting lightly on my arm as if she were steadying me. The next, that same hand shoved hard against my shoulder. My body pitched forward, and the world spun in slow, cruel motion. I heard my own voice cry out, a thin wail that seemed to come from some other woman. Then came the crash, the blinding pain, and the echo of footsteps retreating rather than rushing to help. When I opened my eyes again, bright hospital lights glared down at me. My head throbbed, my ribs screamed, and for a breathless second I wondered if perhaps I had dreamed the shove. Perhaps 70-year-old women like me simply lost balance on staircases. That is what they would want the police to believe. But deep down, I knew better. I am Laura Harris, retired high school English teacher, widow of Thomas Harris, and the recent inheritor of $15 million and a lakeside Victorian mansion from my late brother Arthur. 2 weeks earlier, I had been the quiet woman in the neighborhood who baked banana bread for church fundraisers and read mystery novels by the fireplace. 2 weeks earlier, I thought my son Nathan loved me the way a son should. That was before money, obscene, life-changing money came between us. Now I lay in a hospital bed, my body bruised, my mind sharper than ever. The door creaked open, and there they were, Nathan and Amber. My son carried the expression of a man rehearsing sincerity, while Amber's eyes glittered with the same greedy determination I had glimpsed on the staircase. "Mom," Nathan said gently, moving to my bedside. "The doctors say you fell. You must have been dizzy. Thank God you are alive." I turned my gaze to Amber. She stood just behind him, lips curved into that saccharine smile she wore whenever she thought charm might conceal her schemes. "We were terrified," she cooed. "One wrong step can be so dangerous at your age." At my age. The words sliced deeper than the bruises on my ribs. I might have been injured, but I was not senile. "I did not fall," I said slowly. "I was pushed." Nathan stiffened. "Mom, please. The police already took a report. You told them you could not remember. Do not upset yourself with wild ideas." That was the lie he had spun for them. That his elderly mother had grown confused, that she had stumbled. He had lied to protect Amber, and perhaps himself. Because if I had been declared unfit, if the papers on their dining room table had been signed, my $15 million would already belong to them. Before I could reply, a new voice entered the room. "That will not be necessary, Nathan." The firm, calm tone belonged to a man in a dark suit carrying a leather briefcase. It was Brian Perry, my brother's longtime attorney, and now mine. He walked to the chair beside my bed, set down the briefcase, and gave me a reassuring nod. "I thought I might sit with Laura tonight." Amber's smile faltered. "Mr. Perry, what are you doing here?" "Protecting my client," he said simply. He opened the briefcase and withdrew a thick folder. "The hospital has security cameras. So does your staircase. Laura is not alone in this matter." Nathan's face paled. He looked at Amber, who avoided his eyes. For the first time since my fall, I felt a surge of control return to me. I remembered the night, only days before, when Nathan and Amber had insisted I move into their home. "It just makes sense," Amber had purred, stroking my arm with false affection. "You take care of us, and we take care of you." I should have heard the hunger in her voice then, the hunger that had only grown louder when Nathan spread legal documents across their polished dining table. Estate planning, he had called it, though he had never finished college, much less law school. Power of attorney forms, financial transfers, healthcare directives, buried among them the clauses that would hand control of every cent to him and Amber. That night I had told them I wanted my own lawyer to review the papers. The next morning Amber was sunshine and fruit bowls, but I had overheard their whispers through the thin walls. "She is stubborn. We need that money. She will not live forever." And now, bruised and battered, I looked at my son, the little boy I had once rocked to sleep, and saw only desperation in his eyes. He had chosen his wife's ambition over his mother's life. Brian's voice cut through the silence. "The police will return tomorrow. This time Mrs. Harris will give a full statement." He placed a steady hand on mine. "Do not worry, Laura. You are safe." Safe. I was not sure I believed the word. But as Amber and Nathan exchanged nervous glances, I realized the balance had shifted. They had planned to finish me off quietly, to erase my voice with paperwork and a staged accident. Instead, they now faced an adversary they had underestimated, a 70-year-old widow who still knew the power of truth, and a lawyer who carried the weight of evidence. The game had changed, and I was no longer playing by their rules. 2 weeks before my fall, my life had changed with the opening of a single envelope. I had been sitting at my small kitchen table, sipping tea, when the letter arrived from my late brother's attorney. Arthur and I had not always been close. He had been a collector of antiques, a man who preferred quiet evenings, cataloging rare books to family gatherings, but he had loved me in his own way. Even so, I never imagined the words written on that crisp sheet of paper. Arthur had left me everything. The figure alone made my breath catch. $15 million. Alongside the money came his sprawling Victorian mansion overlooking the lake, a place I had visited only a handful of times. Its wide porches and stained glass windows had always seemed like something out of a novel. Now, unbelievably, it was mine. At first, I felt only sorrow. Arthur's death had been sudden, and the inheritance felt less like a gift than a final goodbye. I spent the next several days rereading his will, searching for hidden meaning, some clue as to why he had chosen me instead of his distant nephews or colleagues. Perhaps it was because I had never asked him for anything. Perhaps it was because, in his eyes, I was the only one who would honor his life's work. Whatever his reason, the news traveled fast. Nathan was the first to call. "Mom," he said breathlessly, "is it true? Did Uncle Arthur really leave you everything?" I hesitated. I had always tried to protect him from the harsher truths of life, but lying now felt impossible. "Yes, Nathan, it appears he did." There was a long pause, then a forced laugh. "Wow, that's amazing. You must be overwhelmed." Overwhelmed was an understatement. I had spent 70 years living modestly on a teacher's pension. Suddenly, I was wealthier than most people I knew. I did not want to celebrate. I wanted to grieve. But Nathan's tone carried no grief at all. Behind the laughter was a hunger I had never heard from him before. 3 days later, he and Amber arrived at my doorstep. Amber swept into my kitchen as though she already owned it, her perfume lingering in the air like a warning. "Laura, dear," she said, pressing both hands over mine. "We've been thinking. You shouldn't be alone right now. Why don't you come stay with us for a while?" Nathan nodded eagerly. "It makes sense, Mom. You'll have company, and we can help with the paperwork. You know, estate planning, taxes, all those complicated things." I studied them carefully. Their smiles were wide, their eyes too bright. I had taught teenagers long enough to recognize when someone was performing for an audience. They wanted me under their roof, where every move I made could be watched. "Still," I agreed slowly, cautiously. "Perhaps for a short time," I said, "until everything is settled." Amber clapped her hands as though I had given her a gift. "Perfect! We'll prepare the guest room. You'll see, it will feel like home." In the days that followed, they treated me like royalty. Amber cooked elaborate meals, roast chicken, buttery rolls, chocolate pie. Nathan rose earlier than usual to bring me coffee, asking how I had slept. They praised me endlessly, laughed at my stories, even suggested we take family photos to commemorate our new beginning. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to think my son still loved me for who I was, not what I owned. But the gleam in his eyes whenever the word inheritance was mentioned told another story. One evening, I wandered into the guest room they had prepared for me. The bed was neatly made, the walls freshly painted, but something about it felt less like hospitality and more like staging. It was as though they were creating a set for a play in which I would be cast as the trusting matriarch. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching Arthur's will in my hands. I could almost hear his voice warning me. Money reveals character. Looking back, I think he knew exactly what kind of storm was coming. As I folded the papers carefully, Amber appeared in the doorway. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were sharp. "Settling in, Mom?" she asked sweetly. "Yes," I answered, though unease prickled at the back of my neck. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "We'll take good care of you. All you have to do is trust us." Trust. The word rang hollow. I had trusted many people in my life, students, colleagues, neighbors. But trusting Amber Martin felt like stepping onto thin ice, knowing it might crack beneath my feet. That night, as I lay awake listening to the muffled voices of my son and his wife arguing in the next room, I realized something chilling. To them, I was not a mother or a relative. I was 15 million reasons to smile. The performance ended the moment Nathan spread the documents across the dining table. Until then, Amber had kept her mask of sweetness intact, cooking favorite meals, fussing over my pillows, asking about my blood pressure as though she were a doting daughter. But when the papers appeared, so did the truth. "Mom," Nathan began, sliding the stack toward me, "we should really talk about estate planning. It's complicated, and Amber's been doing some research. We just want to make sure everything is handled properly." I adjusted my glasses and studied the top page. Power of attorney. I turned to the next sheet. Healthcare directive. Another page, transfer agreements. Each one was written in language that might have fooled someone less experienced, but I had graded enough essays and combed through enough district paperwork in my 30 years as a teacher to recognize buried intent. These forms were designed to hand over control, not protect me. "This seems awfully complicated," I said, setting down my coffee cup. "Maybe I should have my own attorney review these before I sign anything." The air in the room cooled 10 degrees. Amber's smile stiffened. "Oh, Laura, that would only slow things down. We're family. You can trust us." There it was again, that word, trust. Spoken like a shield to deflect suspicion, when in truth, it only heightened mine. "I'll think about it," I replied, folding the papers neatly and tucking them back into the envelope. "For now, I'd like to rest." Amber's lips parted as if to argue, but Nathan shot her a warning glance. "Of course, Mom," he said quickly. "Whatever makes you comfortable." That night, lying in the guest room they had so carefully prepared, I could not sleep. The house was quiet except for the occasional hum of the refrigerator and the creak of the heating system. Then I heard voices drifting through the thin walls. I rose quietly, pressing my ear to the plaster. "She's stubborn," Amber hissed. "We need that money now. We can't keep waiting." "I'm trying," Nathan whispered back, his tone defensive. "But she's cautious. You know how she island. She'll drag her feet forever if we let her." Amber's voice sharpened. "We don't have forever. The debts are piling up. Credit cards, the second mortgage, the late notices. What do you expect me to do? Smile while we drown? We need her to sign." My blood ran cold. It wasn't about caring for me. It wasn't even about family unity. It was about survival for them, and they had chosen the ugliest path possible. "Maybe if we ease her into it," Nathan started. Amber cut him off. "Ease? She'll see right through that. We need pressure, fear." "She's old, Nathan. Old people get confused. One wrong step, one accident, she won't live forever. If she won't sign willingly, then we'll make sure the decision is ours." I pressed a hand over my mouth to stifle the gasp that threatened to escape. My son, the boy I had raised with bedtime stories and backyard baseball, sat silently while his wife plotted my ruin. Worse, his silence was consent. Their voices faded as they moved toward their bedroom. I backed away from the wall, my legs trembling. I slipped into bed, pulling the quilt up to my chin, but sleep never came. Every sound, the tick of the clock, the groan of the house felt like a warning that danger was closing in. The next morning, Amber greeted me with a plate of sliced melon and strawberries, her voice dripping with honey. "Good morning, Mom. Did you sleep well?" "Like a baby," I lied, watching her eyes carefully. She placed the fruit in front of me, her smile flawless, but I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted the plate. Nathan appeared moments later, dressed earlier than usual. He held a manila folder under his arm. "I called a friend of mine, Mom. He's a lawyer, Marcus Webb. He can meet with you this afternoon to go over everything." "How thoughtful," I murmured, though my stomach tightened. Marcus Webb was Amber's cousin, a fact they conveniently omitted. Amber clapped her hands. "See? We're making progress already. Once everything is signed, you'll finally have peace of mind." "Peace of mind," I forced a smile. "We'll see." Inside, I was already planning. I would not be signing anything without counsel from Brian Perry, my brother's trusted attorney. I would not allow my son and his ambitious wife to corner me. They thought my age made me weak, but I had spent decades reading between the lines of adolescent excuses. Compared to teenagers caught cheating on essays, Amber was an amateur. That evening, I phoned Brian from the privacy of the bathroom. "They're pushing hard," I whispered. "Papers, lawyers, the works." His voice was steady, reassuring. "Do not sign a single document. I'll arrange an official evaluation of your mental competency. We'll put everything in writing, in black and white. If they try anything, you'll have proof." When I hung up, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The face staring back was older than I remembered, lined with grief and weariness. But behind the wrinkles were eyes that still held fire. They thought they could bully me into surrendering $15 million. They were wrong. I climbed into bed that night knowing I was no longer simply a guest in my son's house. I was a prisoner under surveillance. And if I wanted to survive, I would have to fight like never before. 2 days after Nathan's attempt with the paperwork, Amber announced she had arranged something special. She came into the guest room without knocking, her perfume filling the air before she spoke. "Laura, dear, we've scheduled a little wellness visit. Just routine, of course. It's important at your age." I sat up slowly, careful to keep my expression neutral. "What kind of visit?" She clasped her hands like a child rehearsing good behavior, a mental health evaluation. "Nothing scary. Just a doctor asking questions to make sure you're not under too much stress. Nathan and I worry about you. We want to protect you." "Protect me." The words tasted like poison. That afternoon, a tall man in a navy suit arrived. He introduced himself with a practiced smile. "Dr. Jeremy Morgan," he said, extending a hand. "I'm here to evaluate your mental state." I did not take his hand. His eyes darted too quickly, and his smile was too broad. My years as a teacher had taught me that the most dangerous liars often hid behind charm. Nathan guided him into the dining room, where the table still bore faint impressions from the papers we had argued over. "Mom, this will only take a few minutes," he coaxed. "Just answer his questions honestly." I folded my arms. "No, thank you. I already have my own physician scheduled." Amber's eyebrows shot up. "What physician?" "Dr. Kelly Martin," I replied. "She's a board-certified psychiatrist. I arranged the appointment yesterday with the help of Brian Perry." For a moment, silence thickened the room. Amber's smile flickered. Nathan cleared his throat. "That seems unnecessary, Mom. Dr. Morgan is a friend of ours. He can provide the same service and much quicker." "That's exactly what concerns me," I said firmly. "Speed rarely equals accuracy." Dr. Morgan leaned forward, lowering his voice as though speaking to a child. "Mrs. Harris, stress can cause confusion at your age. Sometimes paranoia. If you'll let me, I can make sure your family has the legal tools to keep you safe." "Legal tools," he had said the quiet part out loud. My suspicion hardened into certainty. "I'm perfectly capable of deciding what I need," I replied. "If I choose an evaluation, it will be with my own doctor, not yours." Amber let out a tinkling laugh that sounded more like breaking glass. "Laura, don't be stubborn. We only want what's best. Just a few questions, and you'll have peace of mind." I pushed back my chair and stood. My peace of mind comes from knowing I haven't signed away my rights to people who treat me like a problem to solve. Her smile vanished. "You're making this difficult," she snapped, the sweetness gone. Nathan stepped forward, his voice low, urgent. "Mom, please, you're overreacting. Dr. Morgan is here now. Let's just get this over with." "No," I said simply. "My decision is final." For a moment, no one moved. Then Dr. Morgan closed his folder with a sigh. "Very well. But you're refusing a service that could protect you. Sometimes that kind of refusal is itself a sign of impaired judgment." The threat hung in the air like smoke. I met his gaze. "Or perhaps it's a sign of clear judgment, Doctor. I know a wolf when I see one." His eyes hardened, but he said nothing more. After he left, Amber slammed a cabinet door in the kitchen. The bang echoed through the house. "She's impossible," she hissed. "If she won't cooperate, we'll have to push harder." Nathan's reply was quieter, but I heard it all the same. "We can't keep waiting. The bills keep coming." She has to give in, one way or another. That night, I locked my guest room door and slid a chair beneath the knob, just in case. I sat by the window, staring out at the quiet street. To the neighbors, our house probably looked normal, curtains drawn, lights glowing softly, a family at peace. But inside, war was brewing. I called Brian again, whispering into the phone. They brought a doctor today. Not a real one. Someone in their pocket. Brian cursed under his breath. Laura, you must be careful. This is escalating faster than I expected. I'll contact Dr. Martin directly. We'll document everything. If they try again, you'll have evidence. When I hung up, I felt both fear and a strange surge of strength. My body was aging, yes, but my mind was not fragile. I had spent too many years teaching students to question, to see through deception, to give in now. As the clock ticked past midnight, I whispered to the empty room, "You chose the wrong woman to underestimate." The storm broke 3 evenings later. I had felt the tension building all day, like static electricity waiting for a strike. Amber moved through the house with forced cheer, humming too loudly, her smile stretched thin. Nathan disappeared for long stretches, returning with his tie crooked and his eyes darting. Even the air felt restless, heavy with unspoken plans. Just after dusk, there was a knock at the door. I peered from the guest room window and saw a familiar figure doctor, Jeremy Morgan, his navy suit crisp, a leather case in hand. My heart sank. He had returned, and this time I knew he would not leave without trying to take me. Amber called up the stairs, her voice falsely bright. "Laura, dear, Dr. Morgan is here to help. Please come down." I stayed silent, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. The muffled sound of papers rustling drifted upward, followed by Nathan's voice. "Mom, it's just a formality. We've arranged everything." I opened the bathroom door, where I had hidden earlier, and dialed 3 digits with trembling fingers. 911, what's your emergency? "This is Laura Harris," I whispered urgently. "I believe my family is trying to commit me under false pretenses. I'm at their home. Please, send officers quickly." "Stay on the line, ma'am. Help is on the way." Downstairs, footsteps thundered up the staircase. Nathan appeared first, Amber close behind, and then Dr. Morgan, his expression polished and calm, as if rehearsed for a courtroom. In his hand, he carried a set of documents clipped neatly together. "Mrs. Harris," he began smoothly, "we have a 72-hour psychiatric hold prepared for your safety. It's nothing to fear, just a precaution." Amber clasped her hands as though pleading. "Mom, please, you've been so confused lately. This is the best way to protect you." I rose from the chair beside the bed, my back straight despite the ache in my ribs. "Protect me? Or silence me?" Dr. Morgan opened his folder. "The paperwork is ready. We only need your compliance." "Those forms are worthless unless filed properly with the court," I countered, my voice sharper than I intended. "And I happen to know you no longer hold a valid license." For the first time, his smile faltered. Nathan stepped forward, his face flushed. "Stop this, Mom. Just sign the papers. Let's make it easy." I placed my phone on the nightstand, keeping the line open. "I'm not signing anything, and you'll find this far more difficult than you imagined." At that exact moment, the distant wail of sirens cut through the night. Amber's head whipped toward the window. "Nathan!" she hissed. "They're here!" Heavy footsteps pounded up the front porch. The front door burst open, voices commanding authority. "Police! Where is Mrs. Harris?" Seconds later, 2 uniformed officers appeared in my doorway, followed closely by Brian Perry, his briefcase in hand. Relief surged through me like oxygen. "Mrs. Harris." "Are you all right?" the taller officer asked. "I am," I said, steadying my breath. "But these individuals attempted to have me unlawfully committed in order to seize my inheritance." Dr. Morgan bristled. "Officers, this woman is delusional. She needs immediate care." Brian stepped forward, his voice measured but firm. "That is false. Mrs. Harris recently passed a full competency evaluation conducted by a licensed psychiatrist, Dr. Kelly Martin. Furthermore, these papers," he plucked the documents from Morgan's hand, "are blank forms, not filed with any court. This is an illegal attempt at detention." The second officer examined the forms, frowning. "He's right. These aren't valid." Amber's voice cracked. "We were only trying to help her. She's been so paranoid, so confused." "Confused enough to call the police before you arrived?" I asked coldly. "Confused enough to hire an attorney and schedule my own evaluation? I think not." Nathan's face drained of color. He glanced between the officers, Brian and me, realizing the trap had sprung in reverse. His lips parted, but no defense came. Then Amber snapped. "She's ruining everything, don't you understand? We need that money. We're drowning in debt and she sits on $15 million. She doesn't even need it." The words hung in the air, raw and undeniable. The officers exchanged looks. "That's enough," one said, pulling handcuffs from his belt. "You're both coming with us for attempted fraud and unlawful detention." Amber shrieked, thrashing as the metal closed around her wrists. Nathan sagged, silent as the cuffs clicked on his own. "Doctor." Morgan attempted a protest, but the officers confiscated his briefcase, noting his expired credentials. As they were led down the stairs, Amber twisted her head toward me, her voice venomous. "You'll regret this, Laura. You've destroyed your own family." I met her glare with calm resolve. "No, Amber. You destroyed it the moment you decided money mattered more than blood." When the house fell silent, Brian placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You handled that brilliantly. Most people would have signed out of fear. Instead, you fought back." I exhaled, finally letting the weight of the night settle. My body trembled, but my spirit stood taller than it had in years. For the first time since Arthur's will had arrived, I felt something other than fear. I felt victorious. The day after Nathan and Amber were taken away, Brian insisted I not spend another night under their roof. "You need space, Laura," he said firmly, "and you need to begin your life where Arthur intended, at the lake house." I agreed. Every corner of Nathan's home now felt tainted, the air heavy with betrayal. So I packed a single suitcase, gathered the papers Brian had carefully secured, and left without looking back. The drive was quiet, the road winding through stretches of autumn forest. I had only visited Arthur's property a few times, always as a guest marveling at its grandeur. Now I approached it as its owner, though the words still felt foreign on my tongue. The house rose before me, tall and elegant, its Victorian turrets reaching toward the gray sky. Stained glass windows glimmered even in muted light, and the wide porch wrapped around like protective arms. Beyond the gardens, the lake shimmered, calm and endless, as though waiting to welcome me. At the front door stood a woman with silver-streaked hair pulled neatly into a bun. She wore a plain cardigan and an expression both gentle and steady. "Mrs. Harris," she greeted me. "I am Shirley Morgan. I was Mr. Arthur's housekeeper for many years." "Please, call me Laura," I said, taking her hand. Her grip was warm, grounding. "I am sorry for your loss," she continued softly. "Mr. Arthur spoke often of you. He wanted this place to be your sanctuary." Sanctuary. The word nearly undid me. For weeks I had lived in fear, doubting every smile, second-guessing every step. To hear that my brother had thought so far ahead, had cared enough to create safety for me, pierced straight through the fog of betrayal. Shirley led me inside. The house smelled faintly of old wood and lavender polish. Every room held memories of Arthur's passions, shelves lined with first-edition books, cabinets of porcelain, a dining table set for gatherings that never quite happened. Yet the air was not lonely. It felt preserved, as though he had been waiting for me. "There is something Mr. Arthur left especially for you," Shirley said, guiding me to the study. She opened a drawer and pulled out an envelope sealed in his handwriting. My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a letter written in his deliberate script. "Dear Laura, if you are reading this, then I am gone. I chose you because I trust you. Money is a mirror, and it shows people who they really are. I feared others would use this fortune for greed. I believe you will use it for life. Please, live without fear. This house is meant to be your refuge, not your prison. And remember, you owe nothing to anyone who would harm you for what you have. Choose peace. Choose yourself. With love, Arthur." Tears blurred the words, but I read them twice, then a third time, clutching the letter to my chest. My brother had known. He had anticipated the storm that would follow and had armed me with more than money. He had given me permission to protect myself, to live freely. "Would you like some tea, Laura?" Shirley asked quietly, respecting my silence. "Yes," I whispered. "That would be lovely." We sat together in the sunroom, steam rising from delicate china cups. Outside, the lake rippled under a soft breeze. For the first time since the inheritance, I felt my shoulders relax. But peace carried its own weight. My son was in custody. My daughter-in-law's shrill protests still rang in my ears. They had chosen greed over love, deceit over loyalty. The loss of trust cut deeper than the fall down the stairs. I failed him somehow, I murmured, staring into my tea. Nathan was raised to value integrity. His father taught him better. Shirley shook her head gently. You did not fail. People make choices, Laura. Sometimes money exposes the weakness already inside them. That is not your fault. Her words soothed me, though the ache remained. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the lake in gold, I walked through each room of the house. The library smelled of leather and dust, the kitchen gleamed with copper pans, the bedrooms held quilts sewn by hands long gone. In every corner I felt Arthur's presence urging me forward. When night fell, I stood at the upstairs window, looking out at the moonlit water. My reflection in the glass looked older, sadder, but also stronger. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe deeply, to imagine a future not defined by fear. This house would not erase what had happened, but it would give me the strength to face what was still to come. And I knew, with bone-deep certainty, that Amber Martin was not finished yet. For a brief week, the lake house truly felt like sanctuary. I walked the gardens in the morning, sipped tea by the water at dusk, and told myself the worst was behind me. But greed does not surrender easily. Amber Martin proved that. The rumors began quietly. At the farmer's market, I noticed conversations stop when I approached. A neighbor who once waved cheerfully now crossed the street without meeting my eyes. Even Evelyn Perry, my elderly friend from down the road, answered my greeting with hesitation, her smile thin as paper. It was Shirley who found the graffiti first. Scrawled across the iron gate in red paint were 2 words, "Rich Witch." My stomach knotted. This was not random vandalism. It was targeted, designed to isolate me. That evening, Evelyn finally came to see me. She stood on my porch with her hands folded nervously. "Laura," she began, "I do not want to cause trouble, but Amber has been speaking to people. She says you've grown paranoid since inheriting Arthur's money, that you made false accusations against her and Nathan because you're afraid of losing control." The words struck hard, though I had half expected them. "And you believe her?" I asked quietly. Evelyn flushed. "I don't know what to believe. Family matters are complicated." She sounded sincere. I excused myself politely, but anger burned in my chest. Amber had failed with police and paperwork, so now she was attacking my reputation. The next morning I called Brian Perry. "She's poisoning the neighborhood against me," I told him. His tone was grave. "This is character assassination, but it could backfire on her if we gather proof. I know someone who can help. A private investigator." That is how Wayne Perry entered my life. Younger than Brian, but with the same steady eyes, Wayne arrived carrying a discreet leather folder and a calm confidence. "I'll trace her movements, her contacts, her stories," he assured me. "We'll see exactly what she's been up to since her release." 2 weeks later, he returned with a report that chilled me more than the graffiti. "Amber hasn't just been spreading rumors," Wayne explained, laying photographs on the table. "She's reinvented herself. Calls herself a nurse wrongfully accused of patient abuse. Claims her mother-in-law destroyed her life, and she's found a new target." The photo showed Amber seated at a cafe beside an older man with silver hair. He looked kind, lonely, and far too trusting. "His name is Franklin Perry," Wayne said. 75, recently widowed, substantial assets. She's been telling him sob stories about injustice, even hinting at financial struggles. "We've tracked cash transfers, small amounts so far, but she's grooming him for more." I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth. It was Arthur's warning all over again. Money reveals character. Amber had not learned a single lesson. "She was going to move in with him next month," Wayne continued. "He believes he's rescuing her from a cruel misunderstanding." I sank into my chair. I cannot let her destroy another man's life. Wayne studied me. "You could confront her, but she'll deny everything. The smarter move is to warn Franklin directly." That night, I hardly slept. I imagined Amber's syrupy voice weaving lies, imagined Franklin handing over bank details with a trusting smile. I thought of the neighbors who now looked at me with suspicion, not realizing the true predator was still free. At dawn, I stood at the lake's edge, Arthur's letter in my pocket. "Money is a mirror," he had written. "Choose peace, choose yourself." Peace, I realized, sometimes required battle. If Amber wanted to turn my community against me, then I would fight with the truth. And if she thought she could drain the life savings of a grieving widower, she had underestimated me again. By mid-morning, I knew what I had to do. I would meet Franklin Perry myself. I would show him the evidence, the court records, the photos. I would tell him the truth that Amber could never speak. For the first time since the staircase fall, fear gave way to purpose. Amber had turned whispers into weapons, but I had something stronger. I had the truth, and I intended to use it. The cafe smelled of roasted beans and autumn air when I first approached Franklin Perry. He was seated at a corner table, reading a folded newspaper with wire-rimmed glasses perched on his nose. He looked up politely as I asked if the seat across from him was taken. "No, please," he said warmly. "Always glad for company." We spoke for 20 minutes about the weather, about books, about the ache of losing people we love. Then, gently, I steered the conversation toward the subject I dreaded. "I hear you've met someone new," I said. "A woman named Amber." His face brightened. "Yes, lovely woman. She's been through such hardship. Wrongfully accused by her mother-in-law. Can you imagine? She's resilient, though, brave." I took a breath. "Franklin, I am that mother-in-law." The color drained from his face. "What?" I laid the folder Wayne had prepared on the table. Police reports, court transcripts, photographs of Amber with him, and evidence of her fraud. His hands trembled as he turned the pages. "She told me," he began, but his voice broke. "She said it was all a misunderstanding." "She lies," I said gently. "She lied to me, she lied to the police, and now she's lying to you. If you let her, she will take everything." By the time I finished, Franklin's eyes brimmed with fury and grief. "She was going to move into my home next month. I almost added her to my accounts." "Then it is not too late," I told him. That evening, Franklin filed a police report. Combined with Wayne's dossier, it was enough to violate Amber's probation. 2 days later, she was arrested again, her charm exhausted, her mask torn away. When Brian called to confirm the news, I felt no triumph, only a weary relief. Justice was not victory, it was survival. A week later, Nathan came to the lake house. He looked older, thinner, humbled by everything that had happened. Standing on the porch where Arthur once smoked his pipe, my son held his hat in his hands like a schoolboy caught in a lie. "Mom," he began softly, "I've lost everything. Amber, the house, my reputation. But what hurts most is knowing I lost you." I studied his face. I saw shame, exhaustion, maybe even sincerity. "You chose her over me, Nathan. You chose greed over love." He nodded, tears welling. "I know. I can't undo it. But I want to try to be your son again. Not for money. Not for the house. Just for you." I let the silence stretch. The lake shimmered behind me, calm and vast, reminding me that some wounds take time to heal. "Finally," I said, "trust is not a gift, Nathan. It is earned. If you want it back, you'll have to build it day by day." He bowed his head. "I'll try." In the months that followed, I thought often about Arthur's words. Money is a mirror. It had revealed Amber's greed, Nathan's weakness, and my own unexpected strength. I had survived betrayal, humiliation, even an attempt on my life. Now, I wanted to turn that painful inheritance into something greater than myself. With Brian's help, I established the Arthur Harris Foundation, a trust dedicated to protecting seniors from financial abuse. The mansion would become a refuge for those who had been manipulated by family or strangers, a place to recover dignity and rebuild trust. The fund's $15 million and more in investments would support legal aid, counseling, and education programs. On the foundation's opening day, Franklin stood beside me, his eyes steady with gratitude. Evelyn Perry brought cookies for the volunteers. Shirley fussed over the flowers in the foyer. Even Nathan came, quieter now, humbled, carrying chairs without complaint. As I looked around the great hall filled with people who believed in the mission, I felt Arthur's presence like a warm hand on my shoulder. His gift had not been money. It had been freedom, the freedom to choose peace, to choose purpose, to choose myself. That night I sat on the porch alone, the lake glimmering under the stars. I thought about the journey, the shove on the staircase, the sirens in the night, the lies whispered in my neighborhood. I thought about Amber, still caged by her own choices, and Nathan, standing at the fragile edge of redemption. Money had revealed the truth. Some had failed, some had grown, and I had learned that kindness does not mean weakness. It means knowing when to say no, when to fight back, and when to protect not just yourself but others who cannot fight alone. I whispered into the night, "Thank you, Arthur. I finally understand." And with the water lapping gently at the shore, I allowed myself at last to feel not fear, not anger, but peace.